I never imagined that while I was washing dishes and singing, a millionaire chef was watching me. The suds danced around my trembling hands. The kitchen was alive, filled with the rhythmic music of clattering plates and my own shaky voice. I could feel the warmth of the afternoon sun pouring in from the window, casting a golden glow on everything it touched. It was a typical Tuesday, or so I thought. My mom had just gotten home from her double shift, her tired smile barely hiding the weariness behind her eyes. My heart tightened. I wanted to help her. I wanted to be her relief, even if just for a moment. So there I was, lost in a melody, scrubbing pots and pans like they were my ticket out of this kitchen. My escape from a life where every penny counted. The song bubbled up inside me, and I poured my soul into it, each note a small rebellion against our struggles. But the air suddenly shifted. Felt like a shadow fell across my spirit. I paused, catching a glimpse of someone from the corner of my eye. My heart raced. There he stood, a tall figure leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, his eyes piercing me like laser beams. I thought I was imagining things. Who was the stranger? How long had he been there? I felt exposed, vulnerable. Was he judging my voice or my stack of dirty dishes? I couldn't tell. His deep-set gaze flickered with something: curiosity, disapproval. But I dared not meet it directly. I could only feel my cheeks flush with a warmth that didn't quite match the sunshine pouring into the room. The silence felt heavy, like the air had thickened between us. I wiped my soapy hands on a towel, suddenly unsure of everything. This millionaire chef, whoever he was, had disrupted my sanctuary just by standing there. I shook my head and returned to my task, trying to drown out the feeling of his presence suffocating me. But in the back of my mind, 1,000 questions raced. What was he doing here? Did he really find something in me worth watching? The thought sent goosebumps racing along my arms. I was just a kid in an apron, knee-deep in dishwater. Why was a chef with stars and accolades hitching his dreams onto a nobody like me? Just then, my mom's laughter echoed in, breaking the tension. She was oblivious, busy unpacking bags as I stood frozen, my pulse hammering, thoughts spiraling. The tension hinged on every second that passed, my wishful heart tightening with desire and fear. And then, without a word, he turned and vanished into the shadows of the hallway. I felt a part of me follow him, an unshakable tug at my curiosity. What was he searching for? Was it me? Or was I simply another passing distraction in his lavish world? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next day unrolled like a muted canvas, gray clouds muffling the sun and casting a shroud over my morning routine. I boiled water for oatmeal, my thoughts still entangled in the image of him, the tall chef who had disrupted my ordinary life. I tried to shake off the feeling, but it lingered like the dish soap scent clinging to my hands. My mom joined me at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee, the way she always did after a long night shift. "You seem distracted, honey," she remarked, her brow knitting with concern. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just," I fumbled with my words. The truth felt too heavy, too layered with unspoken dreams and burdens. "Just thinking about school. You're singing, right? You should focus on that more." She smiled softly, a spark igniting in her tired eyes. "I still remember the first time you sang for me. The whole world stopped, and I felt like the luckiest mom alive." That memory flickered through my Minda younger me, lost in a world of melodies, the heavy weight of life outside that moment forgotten. But now, with every note I sang, my heart felt anchored in our harsh reality. I forced a smile, not wanting to drag her down into my whirlwind of uncertainty. As the days drifted by, I caught myself stealing glances toward that doorframe again and again. Was he watching, Part of me feared his return. What if he had come to ridicule me? Yet another part yearned for the chance to understand why I stirred something in him. Something beyond my kitchen and my life. 3 nights later, as I scrubbed the dishes after dinner, our usual rhythm broken by laughter and Mom's kitchen musings, I heard the soft creak of the door. My breath hitched in my throat. There he was again, the chef, standing on the threshold. My heart raced, a pendulum oscillating between thrill and apprehension. "Hey," he said, that deep voice rippling through the air, coaxing me to look up. "You didn't see me the last time and I wanted to apologize." I blinked, astonishment coating my thoughts in a layer of disbelief. "Apologize? I didn't mean to intrude. You were lost in your own world." He stepped inside, glancing around the kitchen, his gaze alighting on the stack of dishes. It was beautiful. The compliment wrapped around me, both warm and confusing. My hands stilled, and for a moment, the clattering of plates dissolved around us. I didn't know you were still there," I said lamely, a blush creeping into my cheeks. He chuckled softly, easing some of the tension. "I'm not here to judge. Just curious, I guess. Why do you sing while you wash dishes?" The question lingered in the air, and I wrestled with my reply. How could I explain that those songs were my life raft? That they forged an anchor against guilt, against the harsh reality of our lives? "It makes the work less heavy," I finally managed. He nodded, as if understanding more than I could say. "Music does that. It lifts you out of the mundane." A flicker of connection sparked between us. But just as hope unfurled, the warmth of his presence was cut short by a sharp ringtone from his pocket. He flinched, pulling out the phone, and his expression shifted. A fleeting look of regret? He took a step back, the connection fraying with the abruptness demanding his attention. "I have to take this," he said, hesitating just a moment longer. "It's important." As he walked away, my heart trembled in his absence. But just before he disappeared, he turned once more, vulnerability etched in his features. "He'll come back," he promised, his voice firm but soft. When the door closed behind him, silence reclaimed the kitchen, leaving me to grapple with an electric pulse of emotions. My hands trembled as I resumed scrubbing, pushing back tears that threatened to spill over. Did he mean it? Would he actually return? But then thoughts of my mom's mounting exhaustion grounded me, another weight anchoring me to reality. She had worked hard her entire life. How could I burden her with more dreams, more wishes that seemed unspeakably out of reach? That night, as I tossed and turned in bed, my mind swirled with uncertainty. Dreams of kitchens far, brighter than ours intertwined with the haunting thought of his return and the secret hope that accompanied his mere presence. Just as I teetered on the verge of sleep, my phone buzzed, startling me awake. A single message glowed on the screen, and my breath caught. It was from him. "Can we talk? I need you to know something important." My heart thundered with both anticipation and dread. What could this mean? A new opportunity? Or a reminder of how precarious the line was between dreams and reality? The tension hung in the air with an electrifying weight, and I could sense that everything was about to change. The morning crept in quietly, the sun piercing through the remaining clouds with hesitant rays. I propped myself up on one elbow, the weight of last night's message heavy on my chest. What did he want to tell me? I tossed aside the covers and sat at the edge of my bed, the carpet cool against my feet. Thoughts scattered like autumn leaves in the wind, and I could feel the frost of apprehension nipping at my resolve. The usual morning routine felt amplified, each sound echoing. The kettle's whistle, the soft clanking of bowls, the rustle of cereal pouring into a cup. My mom worked silently beside me, her movements graceful despite her fatigue. As I poured the steaming oatmeal, I told myself it would be just another day. But in the quiet recesses of my mind, I couldn't shake the pull toward my phone, the siren call of that text. After breakfast, I lingered at the table, anxiety twisting my stomach. "Mom, do you think it's possible for someone to change your life in just one conversation?" I asked, half breathing the words. She paused, her spoon hovering above her bowl. "Sometimes, sweet girl, it just takes one person to open a door." There was wisdom in her eyes that I wanted to grasp, wanted to understand fully. But I couldn't tell if she meant it as encouragement or a warning. I nodded, but the response dulled within me. My heart raced at the thought of him but sank with the weight of my ordinary life. The kitchen felt like a cage. The dishes stacked so high they might topple, just like the precarious balance of hope I was about to embrace. The next few hours crept by, and I found myself checking my phone constantly, the minutes stretching into an eternity. Finally, I couldn't wait any longer. With shaky hands, I shot him a quick message. "I'm free to talk." When? Moments later, 3 dots fluttered on the screen, and my heart pounded in anticipation. But then, just as quickly, they vanished, leaving me staring at the blank screen, confusion and anxiety spiraling inside me. The day continued, but my thoughts were a swirl of what-ifs. What if he wanted nothing more than to return to his world, finally shaking off the curiosity of a fleeting moment? What if I'd overestimated our connection, assumed too much too fast? Each question felt like an anchor dragging me deeper into a sea of doubt as evening approached. My phone buzzed with a new message. My breath caught as I saw his name lighting up the screen. "Can I come by tonight at 8? I glanced at the clock. It was already past 6. "Yeah, sure," I responded, attempting to grasp the cool composure I had lost throughout the day. I pressed the phone to my chest, the weight pulling me down. Yet there was an ember of hope flickering, glowing amidst the chaos. The hours leading to 8 felt like a countdown to a storm. I couldn't shake my nervousness. I smoothed back my hair, even donned the only nice shirt I owned, as if trying to wrap myself in a bit of confidence. But deep down, I felt like a fish out of water, ready to leap out of my pond toward uncharted oceans. When the knock finally came, it echoed through my chest like a drumbeat. Pausing to gather myself, I opened the door slowly and found him standing there, hands tucked into the pockets of his designer jacket. "Looking every bit the culinary prince." "Hi," he said, his voice slightly breathless, like he had just run a mile to get here. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, unable to shake the feeling of disbelief. There was a kind of magic in the air, laced with uncertainty, like the moment before the first drop of rain should fall. As he crossed the threshold, I could see the weariness in his eyes, a depth of emotion both troubling and captivating. "I didn't want to disturb you last time," he started, rubbing the back of his neck, searching for words. "But I had to come back. There's something I need to tell you." I nodded, a lump forming in my throat as I gestured for him to sit at the kitchen table. The previous dish-scrubbing secrets were long gone. The weight of potential heartbreak settled like dust around us. "I'm not just any chef," he began, choosing each word with careful precision. "I've come from a world where everything seems perfect, but I'm struggling. My life feels like a high-stakes competition, and it's suffocating. When I heard you sing that night, you took me away from that for a moment." His vulnerability washed over me, a cascade of emotions that felt achingly familiar yet profound. There was a heartbeat of depth in his confession, a silent plea that pulled at my heartstrings. "But," he continued hesitantly, "there's something I need to ask you about. A chance, an opportunity that might help us both." My pulse quickened, anticipation and fear melding together. "What is it?" Before he could answer, the sharp trill of my phone broke through the silence, the harshness of the sound cutting the moment. I fumbled to answer, glancing at the screen. It was a number I recognized all too well. "Me mom's boss." "Hello?" I answered, voice barely above a whisper. "Is this your mother?" The man asked brusquely. "We need to discuss a situation that has arisen. It's urgent." My heart raced as I watched the confusion wash over his features. The revelation in his eyes mirrored what was creeping dreadfully across my chest. "What's happening?" I whispered, barely able to contain the panic rising inside me. Time froze as I awaited the man's reply. The kitchen, filled with hope moments ago, felt like a shifting ground beneath my feet. What could have been an opportunity for both of us now faced an unsettling unknown. The boundaries of my reality creeping back in, threatening to eclipse the light he brought with him. "Your mother, she's in trouble," the heavy voice on the other end declared. A chill crawling beneath my skin. A million thoughts raced through my mind, the warmth of the moment and dreamy prospects crumbling dangerously close to the edge of despair. I turned back to him, struggling to hold back tears, the unclear future looming larger than any moment of intrigue or connection we had shared. And just like that, my secret hope felt like a bitter pill, but I had no choice but to swallow it whole without any real understanding of what would come next. The air felt thick with unspoken words as I hung up the phone, the spark of hope extinguished amidst the reality of my mother's troubles. I turned to the chef, whose eyes had darkened with concern, but the connection we had forged was now overshadowed by dread. "What do you mean in trouble?" he asked, his voice steady but his gaze betraying unease. I waved my hand dismissively, unable to explain the tightness in my chest. "It's nothing, just work-related. She's fine, I promise." My voice wavered, faltering under the weight of false reassurance. But deep down, I knew that the anxious lilt to my tone spoke volumes. He stood up, instinctively moving closer, wanting to envelop me in his presence. Yet it felt like pouring water onto a flickering flame, our moment of potential doused in uncertainty. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked, his sincerity cutting through the confusion wrapping around us. I shook my head, desperation creeping into my eyes. "Just give me a minute. I need to process this." In that moment, all of my carefully curated thoughts shattered like glass, leaving only scattered fragments of what could be saved. As silence filled the room, I could sense him retreating, inching away into the shadows of my kitchen. My heart pounded against the walls of my chest, echoing my own simmering despair. The fairy tale scene we had been weaving together was unraveling at an alarming rate, the future I envisioned slipping further from my grasp. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," he said quietly, his eyes reflecting uncertainty. "Maybe I should go." His words pierced through me like a knife. "No, please don't go. I'm just overwhelmed." The confession escaped my lips, raw and unfiltered. He hesitated, then nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. I felt a sliver of relief, yet knew the battle for clarity was far from over. "What exactly is happening with your mother?" he pressed gently, imploring me to share the burden welling within me. I took a deep breath, my thoughts racing. "Her job, it's more complicated than I thought. I didn't want to worry her. She's been working long hours, and I just got a call saying she might be facing layoffs. Feels surreal." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle between us. "I can't lose her job. We depend on it." The gravity of my situation hung in the air, and for a fragment of a moment, my worries morphed into a shared concern between us. He stepped back toward me, a flicker of resolve brightening his expression. "We can figure this out together, you know. Just give me a chance." A thread of comfort tinged with hope sparked in response to his promise, a reminder that even in moments of darkness, kindness and solidarity could kindle the light. "Thanks," I whispered, fighting the urge to break into tears. "That means a lot." But before I could breathe easier, a loud crash erupted from the living room. My heart dropped as I turned toward the sound, dread pooling in my stomach. "Mom?" I called out, anxiety tightening its grip around my throat, a warning siren blaring in my mind. We rushed to the living room, finding my mom sprawled across the floor, one of her precious plants toppled beside her. "Mom!" I shouted, fear coursing through me as I knelt down, panic clawing at my insides. "Just tripped," she mumbled, brushing herself off with a weak smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She seemed more worn than ever, like a weary traveler bearing the weight of hidden burdens. But before I could voice my concern, she turned to the chef, recognition flickering across her features. "Who's this?" Her tone was steady, yet I could sense the fatigue pooling in her voice. "Mom, this is," I started, but she interrupted. "Right, the chef from the restaurant, right?" Her eyes narrowed in on him, assessing his presence. "Have you found a new path forward?" I felt a tinge of unease at the way she scrutinized him. "I'm just a friend," he replied with a gentle nod, a softness in his gaze that seemed to reassure her for a moment. Her smile faltered slightly, returning to me with a knitted brow. "Don't keep the good company too long, sweet girl. You have your own life to sort out." I glanced back at him, searching for understanding in his eyes. Actually, he was just leaving. I hesitated, seeing the uncertain glimmer between a struggle against the encroaching reality of my mother's state. "Oh, I can stay," he interjected quickly. "I want to help if you both need." Mom waved her hand, dismissing his offer. "No, dear. Just don't feel obliged to offer favors for nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was a lifeline, an extension of camaraderie that could possibly lead to new beginnings for us all. My heart raced as I caught the flicker of connection still simmering between us. But before I could navigate this fragile moment, a notification blinked at the corner of my phone, distracting me from my spiraling thoughts. It was another message, this time from an unknown number. My stomach dropped as I read the words on the screen. "We need to talk about your mom's situation." An uneasy sensation washed over me as I looked toward the chef, my mind swirling with dread at what that could mean. The air around us thickened as the choices stretched ahead of me, each decision weighed down with the potential to shift everything. It felt as if the ground beneath us had shifted violently as I stood between hope and despair. And as uncertainty flooded back into the room, I realized just how fragile our newfound connection had become. The foundations of everything we hoped for now resting precariously on the edge of an unknown precipice. The time that followed felt like a blur, moments dissolving into one another, as I struggled to sort through the chaos brimming inside me. My heart thudded unevenly against my ribcage, trapped between worry for my mother and a newfound connection that felt both fragile and exhilarating. The kitchen and the living room had morphed into a battleground of emotions, each corner echoing with unsaid hopes and fears. "Are you okay?" the chef asked, concern threading through his voice as he stepped closer to me. The warmth of his presence creeping back like a lifeline I was hesitant to grasp. I wanted to offer reassurance, but my thoughts were crowded with visions of my mother, exhausted and vulnerable. "I don't know," I admitted, collapsing onto a nearby chair, my hands burying my face in frustration. I just always been the strong one, and now his finger gently lifted my chin, an unexpected spark igniting between us as I met his gaze. "Let's take this one step at a time. I'm here and I'm not leaving you." His voice was firm, steadying in the chaos. There was an unexpected kindness in his assertion, enough to break through the suffocating grip of my worry, if only a fraction. I breathed deeply, eyes flickering toward my mother, who was now slowly gathering the remnants of her fallen plant, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to maintain her composure. "Mom," I called gently, though my voice trembled with an uncharacteristic sadness. She paused, meeting my gaze with a weary smile that masked her exhaustion. "Are you sure you're okay?" She straightened, brushing dirt from her knees, but the effort seemed to cost her more energy than she could afford. "It's nothing, really. Just a little stumble." "It's not just a stumble. You look tired," I pressed, my voice rising with worry, but she waved me off again, dismissing my concerns as if they were mere inconveniences. "I've got a lot on my plate," she replied, but I could decipher the cracks forming in her facade. It hurt to see her try so hard to maintain a semblance of normalcy when everything felt so far from it. Something shifted within me, an insistence rising to the surface that couldn't be quieted any longer. "I want to help you, Mom. Just let me in." Perhaps it was the tender encouragement from the chef beside me, or perhaps it was the pyramids of unspoken words that I had carried for too long. I wasn't only concerned about her job anymore. I was scared of losing her, of not knowing how to help when she needed me the most. Her eyes softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through her stoic demeanor. "I don't want to burden you with my problems. You're building your life. I should manage mine. But you don't have to do it alone." I pressed gently, feeling the fulcrum of our relationship teetering. The weight of everything we hadn't said lingered thickly in the air. "There's not always a choice, my sweet girl," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, but I heard the tremor of something deeper in her words. Just then, her phone buzzed from the counter, slicing through our emotional moment. She frowned, moving slowly as she picked it up. The moment dragged as she scanned the screen, and I felt my heart quicken, sensing an unease that mirrored my own. "What is it?" I asked, dread pooling at the base of my throat. She hesitated, her eyes scanning the message, and I caught the flash of anxiety cross her face before it settled into a resolute calm. "It's just work. "They'll handle it," she replied as she tucked the phone away. But the edge in her voice told another story. I said about the layoffs. I pressed, instinctively bracing myself as a tide of emotions swelled, threatening to burst the levee I had tried so hard to maintain. Silence hung heavy between us, and in that excruciating moment, I felt a cold trickle of fear. "I told you it's no big deal." Her tone was dismissive, but the fleeting panic in her eyes spoke a different language. "Mom," I started again, glancing at the chef who remained a steady presence beside me, a silent ally in an uncertainty that unfurled before us like a clenched fist. But the moment shattered as her phone buzzed violently again, almost as if it had sensed the tension in the room. She reached for it with a rush of urgency, her breath catching in her throat as she read the latest message. "I really need to take this," she murmured, the weight of her voice heavy with unspoken implications. "Maybe it would be better to talk in private?" I suggested, anxiety sharpening my tone. She didn't respond, rooted in place as her eyes darted back and forth across the screen, her world shrinking down to the words illuminated in front of her. I exchanged a glance with the chef. His face mirrored mine, concerned, puzzled, and anxious for her. I realized then that the walls we had erected around us, bound by love and worry, were beginning to buckle. "Mom, please talk to me." My voice trembled as dread coiled tighter, suffocating. Her expression turned grave, the energy of the room shifting palpably. "I don't know if I can keep you out of this, but it might be too late." Her voice shook, and she dropped her gaze to the floor, the resolve cracking that I end that anxious pause. I felt my heart plummet. The fear of losing her, of her struggles becoming an insurmountable wall between us, loomed darker than ever. The image of our future together flickered again, fragile as a candle dancing against the stormy wind. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, sharp and unexpected. My heart raced as my mind spun with possibilities. Who could that be? I muttered, barely noticing the chef's hand on my shoulder, an anchor against the storm brewing inside me. "It's time to face whatever this is," he said softly, but I could sense the uncertainty lurking beneath his reassuring tone. I nodded hesitantly, but dread wrapped around me as I approached the door, each step heavier than the last. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same after this moment. Layers of our lives were about to peel away, and I could only hope we could withstand whatever truths this knock might bring. As I opened the door, I felt a chill sweep over me, prickling the back of my arms. There, framed in the doorway, stood a figure draped in an unassuming coat that did little to hide the expensive suit underneath. He was older, with a confident posture that radiated authority, yet his expression was oddly soft, almost weary. A part of me instinctively recoiled, not wanting to open myself up to yet another complicated turn of events in a day that already felt heavy with unspoken burdens. "Is this the residence of Margaret Hayes?" he asked, his voice calm yet commanding, making my heart skip as he named my mother. I nodded, and a knot twisted in my stomach as the man briefly glanced over my shoulder, meeting my mother's fearful gaze. "I'm here on business, but it involves matters of a personal nature," he continued, his eyes flickering away as if what he was about to say weighed heavily on him. "Can you come back later?" I blurted, a flicker of desperation sparking in my chest. "My mom isn't well?" He interjected gently, but there was an unmistakable understanding in his voice, as if he already knew more about us than we might have wanted him to. The air thickened, and my mother slowly stepped forward, her breath catching as she took in the stranger's presence. "Dagmar Anderson," she spoke, her tone laced with apprehension. "What brings you here?" He hesitated before responding. "Unfortunately, I must discuss your position at the firm." The last word hung in the air, a heavy grimace following in its wake, and I felt the ground beneath me shift. Position? The word felt foreign, as if it belonged to another world where we still had the luxury of stability. The chef's hand tightened on my shoulder, grounding me even as my mind spiraled. "Yes," Mr. Anderson said, the weight of his gaze unwavering. "It seems that with the upcoming budget cuts, your department faces unexpected changes. I wanted to provide you the courtesy of notice before it circulates widely." My mother paled, her shoulders stiffening as if she had just been dealt a physical blow. How severe are these changes?" Her voice trembled, and I could feel my heart clench in sympathy, longing to shield her from this cruel reality. It is best I discuss the details in a more private setting, but I cannot guarantee there will not be layoffs. The finality in his tone was disheartening, a knife twisting deep. I felt anger rise within me. Against him, against the circumstances, and mostly against the world that seemed so intent on tearing my mother down. "Mom, we can get through this together," I murmured, not fully understanding the chaos buzzing in my mind. Yet Mr. Anderson's unyielding nature settled a chill in my bones. Something about the way he spoke hinted that this was only the beginning of something deeper, something more unsettling. "The truth of the matter, Margaret," he continued slowly, "is that I hope to offer you an opportunity rather than see you measured against the risks of your current position. I have a project in mind and believe you have the skills needed to elevate it." Hope blinked softly in the shadows, but the doubt in my mother's expression pushed back against it. "You're talking about a new position in the midst of uncertainty? I appreciate the thought, but I can't entertain changes when my team is at risk of being dismantled. I understand your hesitation, but time is against you. These decisions won't wait long," he replied firmly, maintaining his professional demeanor. But there was a warmth flickering behind his words, a semblance of understanding that somehow made this moment all the more difficult. I stepped forward, my heart racing. "Why would you offer her this? Is it genuine?" The deeper implication hung in the air, twisting my stomach further. It reeked of ulterior motives. His gaze held steady. "It is genuine. In this business, timing is everything. Should your mother choose to accept, it may provide both stability and a fresh start." "Fresh start?" my mother echoed, her voice a mixture of anguish and disbelief. "At what cost? I won't abandon my team. They're counting on me." "There are always choices to make in hard times, Margaret," he replied, and I could see the shift in the atmosphere as he pressed forward. "You've always been talented. This could be your chance to shine under a different sphere." An unexpected stillness fell over the room. My mother looked between Mr. Anderson and me as if seeking guidance but found only uncertainty reflected back. A lump rose in my throat. I wanted to wipe away the discomfort wrapping around us, to shield her from this harsh reality before us. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but insistent. "I need time to think about this." The determination in her words felt fragile, like glass on the verge of shattering. "Of course." Mr. Anderson nodded, though his brow furrowed slightly, a hint of frustration mingling with concern crossing his features. "Just know that time is not your ally in this scenario." As he turned to leave, the door closing behind him felt heavier than before, each click echoing a harbinger of choices stacking before us like tired bricks. I glanced at my mother, panic rising to meet the apologetic sadness in her eyes. "What are we going to do?" But before she could respond, her phone buzzed, louder and more insistent this time. It jolted her from her reverie, and she immediately frowned, concern knitting her brow as she read the name flashing across the screen. "It's my boss," she said quietly, a tremor in her voice. "I should answer." "Mom, wait," I pleaded, feeling a sense of urgency swell within me. "Let's talk it through first." But she was already stepping away, her face turning pale as she answered. I could only watch, as worry coiled around my heart like a vice, choking out the last flickers of hope. However, as I stood alone in the silence, my thoughts tangled with fear and uncertainty, a realization began to dawn. This was no longer just about my mother's job, or her struggle against the world. It was now about our future, one that felt precarious and uncertain. And as my mother's voice floated through the air, filled with a mix of resignation and unanswered questions, I understood that more than our old life was hanging in the balance. There was a change in the air, one that might alter the very fabric of our relationship forever. In that electric moment, my heart sank as another thought surged through my mind. What if this wasn't just about her job? What if it went deeper? The question remained suspended in the air, an unspeakable truth edging closer to revelation. The kitchen was silent now, the echoes of Mr. Anderson's words lingering like a distant storm. I cleaned up the remnants of dinner while my mother remained fixed in conversation. The clattering of dishes felt like a frantic heartbeat, the monotony a vain attempt to chase away the anxiety pooling in my stomach. When she finally hung up, I turned, hoping for some clarity, but the look on her face stole the breath from my lungs. "It's worse," she whispered, clenching her jaw as if to hold back the sorrow. "They're bringing in an external consultant to evaluate the department, to look over efficiency and cut costs. Do they know about the layoffs?" I asked, horrified for the team she had fought so hard to keep intact. She nodded slowly, despair darkening her eyes. "They want to make sure they're getting rid of the right people, and my name might be on that list." A visceral stab of fear shot through me. "No, Mom, we can't let it come to that. We can fight this." She smiled faintly, a sad echo of the woman I knew. "I don't know if there's a fight left in me, sweetheart. I've given everything I can to keep my team afloat, and I might just have to make a choice that I never wanted to face." The walls around me felt like they were closing in, the weight of the uncertainty crushing. Just then, the flicker of her phone caught my eye again. It vibrated insistently on the kitchen counter. An unknown number flashed. "Another call?" I said, trying to break the tension. "You don't have to answer, I have to." She interrupted, her voice strained. The moment she picked up, I felt a shift, something different sparking in the air. She leaned closer, her expression evolving from worry to sheer disbelief. "Whoever this is, they sound serious," she mumbled under her breath. I strained to catch a fragment of the conversation floating towards me, and as her face paled, the uttering of financial support stopped my heart. "Mom?" I whispered, desperately grasping for her focus. "What's happening?" It's the union," she finally said, her face a mask of anguish. "They want to discuss my role, and how much they value my work in light of the potential layoffs." A deep breath escaped her lips, but it felt heavy like stones dragging us down into a murky abyss. Her eyes filled with unshed tears. "Mom, this isn't something you have to fight alone. Let's sit down and talk strategy. No more strategy," she said firmly. "What if I can't hold them off? What then?" A tremor snaked through her voice, the fear spilling over as reality sunk in farther than it had ever reached before. "I won't let you go through this alone," I insisted, my heart racing. "We can reach out to your friends, the good ones. They might help, or we could even contact Mr. Anderson again." My mother shook her head slowly. "This is about more than just me. It's about the whole team. I think he actually might care about their future. But I'm not sure it's in my hands anymore." I stepped closer, my heart breaking for the woman I admired so deeply, feeling powerless as she wrestled with despair. "There must be something we can do." Suddenly, her phone lit up. A message this time. She swiped open the text, her eyes narrowing in curiosity. I watched as color drained from her face once more, dawning horror gripping her features once again. "What is it?" I pressed, anticipation clawing at me. "It's a forward from one of my colleagues," she mumbled. "They found out about a surprise team meeting tomorrow about the layoffs." She swallowed hard, struggling to maintain her composure. "It's happening sooner than we thought." Panic surged through me as the implications swelled in the room, casting shadows among the tentative embers of hope still flickering. "Mom, can't we alert the others? You could rally the team before they make any decisions." Her gaze fell away. "They need me," she whispered, the weight of resignation rolling off her. "But at what cost to myself?" I felt a wave of anguish wash over me, each heartbeat tinged with an echo of uncertainty, and frustration boiled inside of me. "It can't end like this. You fought too hard." Her expression softened, briefly, then hardened into that familiar mask of determination that I had seen throughout my childhood. "We can't lose sight of what's truly important," she whispered, raising her hand as if trying to grasp something invisible in the air. "This isn't just about saving a job. It's about integrity. And I can't stand by while people's livelihoods are sacrificed in the process." But just as she spoke, the door rang again, sharp and jarring, slicing through the weight of our emotional turmoil. "Who could that be now?" I asked, glancing at her, bewildered by the unrelenting stream of misfortune that had decided upon our evening. My mother walked to the door with slow, deliberate movements. With each step, I felt the air thicken. When she opened it, a young woman stood there, wide-eyed but radiating an unmistakable warmth that almost glowed in the dim light. Their meeting seemed almost scripted. That I am sorry to intrude, but I heard about the crisis at work. I had to come, she said breathlessly, clutching a stack of papers that were bubbling over with urgency. There's something important we need to discuss. My heart clutched with a mix of apprehension and hope. Could this woman be the light piercing through the darkness we found ourselves engulfed in? But before any hearts could begin to ease, the young woman extended the top sheet of her notes, her expression transforming into one of grave intensity. I need you to see this, she insisted, her voice trembling slightly. And the longer you wait, the more dangerous it becomes. My heart sank as I studied my mother's face, caught in the limbo of disbelief and hope, both of which felt equally tenuous. But I knew whatever it was that lay ahead, there would be no easy choices. And as I stood in the shadows of an uncertain future, the flare of revelation shone bright on the horizon, preparing to unveil the trials that lay ahead, all while the fabric of our lives threatened to unravel. The weight of the young woman's arrival settled heavily in the air, an uninvited gust amid the storm we had been weathering. My mother took a step back, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly at the flicker of curiosity igniting in her eyes. It wasn't just the unexpected guest standing on our doorstep with urgent news, but also the glimmer of someone else taking note of our struggles. "Who are you?" my mother asked, warily eyeing the papers like they were a fragile truce in an impending war. "I am Clara," the woman replied, glancing behind her cautiously, as if she feared an unseen threat might pounce. "I work with the union and I've been investigating the layoffs. I believe we have a chance." The intensity in her voice was infectious. It shook loose something inside me, and though I still felt the churn of anxiety deep in my gut, I grasped that shreds of hope were now dangling tantalizingly before us. "Please, come in," my mother finally relented, parting the door wider to let Clara cross the threshold. The moment she stepped inside, she became a part of our unfolding drama, small beacon in our darkening world. As she spread her papers across the dining table, a map of tangled webs weaving in and out of corporate policies and financial predictions sprang to life before us. "I don't want you to panic," she began, her voice steadying, "but there's something going on that you need to know. It's more than just your department at risk. The entire company is facing changes that could send shockwaves through every team." I glanced at my mother, whose brow furrowed deeper with every line of Clara's explanation. This was bigger than we imagined, a tightening noose threatening more than just her job but everything she held dear at the company. "Have they decided who to cut yet?" I pressed, desperate for clarity. Clara leaned closer, her expression grave. "No, but they have their lists. They're throwing darts now, making quick cuts without seeing the full picture. Your mother's integrity is known, but it might not matter to those higher up if it means saving the bottom line." A lump formed in my throat, a mixture of disbelief and fury bubbling near the surface. "This system is broken," I whispered, the bitter cold of helplessness seeping into my bones. "It's more than broken," Clara agreed softly. "It's callous. The upper management doesn't see their employees as people. They're numbers on a spreadsheet. But if we bring this to light, if the people realize it's not just about surviving, they can unite. They can fight back. My mother's hands trembled as she skimmed through the pages Clara had prepared. "You think I should rally the team?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "Yes," Clara exclaimed, igniting a spark in our shared gloom. "But it needs to be done carefully. We have to ensure that everyone understands what's at stake. Your voice, the respect you've earned over the years, it could mean the difference." A complex wave of emotions surged within me as I watched the way my mother's eyes brightened, and I felt a flicker of determination ignite in me too. The fight wasn't over yet. But as Clara and my mother continued to strategize, I slipped away to the kitchen again, overwhelmed. Slumped against the counter, I closed my eyes, taking in deep, steady breaths. Moments of tranquility seemed hard to come by, but I clung to the glimmers of hope. We had the possibility of pulling together. And then came a soft knock, vibrating through the air like a whisper. I opened the door to find a neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, standing with her beloved terrier in her arms, her expression wrought with concern. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I heard about the layoffs and just wanted to check in. If there's anything you need, food, supplies, Even someone to talk top-lease don't hesitate to ask. Her kindness unfurled a sense of warmth that momentarily soothed my frayed nerves. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. It's just been a real difficult time, she finished, nodding sympathetically. I know. I've been there before, and if you ever want to share stories or need a helping hand, you've got my support. She turned to leave but then paused. And don't forget, my husband used to work in corporate as well. He might have some connections he could reach out to. My heart swelled with gratitude, a tiny beacon of hope amid the uncertainty. I returned to the dining room where Clara and my mother were deep in discussion about action points. But I felt different now. The world outside felt less daunting when wrapped in layers of kindness. Mom, I interrupted, excitement coursing through my words. What if we reached out to others as well? Like Mrs. Thompson, she might have contacts, and the rest of your colleagues. If we can rally the entire community suddenly. The doorbell rang again, shrilling with urgency. My mother's head snapped up. Clara's expression tightened, and I held my breath, hoping this wasn't an omen of dread. Who now? My mother wondered aloud, glancing with uncertainty as her eyes met mine. I opened the door, and the world tilted underneath me. Standing there was Mr. Anderson himself, the man whose name so burdened our thoughts in the past hour, the very figure who could tip the scales with his decisions. That I heard there was a meeting here, he said, his voice softer than I'd expected, and yet there was an edge of seriousness that made every word feel heavy. I believe I might have some insight into the situation. Suddenly, the air was thick with anticipation, possibilities stretched like threads ready to snap. No one moved, each of us navigating the razor's edge of uncertainty, as if holding our breath for whatever revelation awaited us next. It felt as if everything had converged in this moment, hope mingled with trepidation. Would his insight be the bridge we needed to cross this treacherous chasm, or would it plunge us deeper into despair? Before any of us could speak, he took a step forward, and I could see the flicker of resolve in his eyes, as if he knew more than he let on. My heart raced and free fell into the abyss of unanswered questions, the haunting echo that lingered still. Would we sink or would we rise? The gravity of Mr. Anderson's presence transformed the suffocating atmosphere into a charged battleground where emotions clashed and converged. My mother stood frozen in disbelief. Clara's posture stiffened, and I felt my heart thumping like a war drum. This was not just a man. He was a titan. A voice that commanded boardrooms and cut jobs as easily as he chose a T.I.Mr. Anderson. My mother's voice broke the silence, trembling slightly. What brings you here? I received some unsettling reports about the layoffs, he said, his gaze sweeping across the room, taking in our scattered notes, the intensity buzzing like electricity in the air. I came to see how my employees were faring. I want to hear it from you. Her lips pressed together, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the hesitation flicker in my mother's eyes. Then, as if fortified by Clara's earlier spark of hope, she squared her shoulders. We're fighting back, Mr. Anderson. We've learned the truth about the impending cuts and how they'll ripple through the entire company. There's no need for anyone to be sacrificed without understanding how these decisions impact real lives. He nodded, acknowledging her words, and I saw a flicker of respect in his eyes, but it was shadowed by something else. Sorrow? Guilt? The weight of the world pressed down on him, thickening the air further. You're right, he said slowly, a sigh escaping him. But I also have challenges I'm facing. Decisions I have to make that aren't just about the personnel. What do you mean? Clara interjected, stepping forward. It feels like you're part of the problem, Mr. Anderson. How could you not see the human cost involved? His forehead creased with genuine distress. Believe me, I do see it. If I had my way, I wouldn't cut anyone. But the boardroom isn't always about what is right, it's about what is necessary. He paused, tilting his head slightly, as if weighing his next words. There are proposals on the table that even I cannot control. These layoffs, if they happen and we don't act together, may just be the beginning of something far worse. What could be worse than this? My voice broke into the charged atmosphere, pleading for clarity that hung low like fog. What do we do? I'm not here to promise solutions, he said, raising a hand to quell the rising tide of frustration in the room. But I can help you gather support. I need to know what you have planned. For the community, for your colleagues, you might have more power than you realize if you can organize everyone. The air shifted as his words sank in a strange amalgam of hope and resignation unfurling within us. Clara's brows furrowed in thought, while my mother's face transformed, igniting with a renewed sense of purpose. If we mobilize, if we gather team members and community support like we discussed, will you stand with us? There was a delicate tremor in her voice, a blanket of vulnerability beneath her directness. He hesitated, the silence stretching thin. I will try, but understand the stakes are high. I might not be able to guarantee anything, especially if the board decides to pursue aggressive measures regardless of public opinion. But together we can create genuine awareness. We can fight for something. My heart swelled painfully within my chest. Could this truly be a flicker of hope amid the chaos? He was caught between loyalty to a corrupt system and the genuine desire to do what's right. We stood at this precipice. A sudden raucous sound sliced through the tension, shouting from the front yard. It was my little brother, Daniel, his cheeks flushed and eyes ablaze with fervor. Mom, you have to come outside. Hurry! A knot of dread formed in the pit of my stomach as I quickly moved to the front door, ushering everyone to follow me. Outside, the scene unfolded like a theater of chaos. Daniel was pointing animatedly at the street, where a small crowd had gathered, faces filled with confusion and anger. Words like unfair and collusion flung through the air as if they were bullets in a desperate fight for truth. Mom, they're saying the layoffs are worse than we thought. They're catching onto the plans. He was practically vibrating with the electricity of excitement and fear. Suddenly, Clara's phone buzzed violently in her pocket, her eyes growing wide with recognition as she pulled it out. It's from my contact. There's a whistleblower. Someone inside wants to go public with the truth about the cuts and the other hidden agendas. They're afraid, though afraid to speak up without support. My heart raced, each beat echoing the urgency of our reality. It felt as if walls were closing in around us, the need for solidarity boiling over. A call for action was ringing out not just from the crowd, but from within us all. Mr. Anderson's face turned pale, an internal battle playing out behind his eyes. If we don't act now, he said finally, meeting my mother's gaze directly, we could lose more than just jobs. We could ignite a firestorm that destroys the entire structure of the company. The realization settled heavily in the air, and yet, amidst the chaos, a wild spark of something grand was igniting within USA fight that might just transcend numbers on a spreadsheet. But as I stepped closer to the door to join my brother, I felt a tightening in my chest as if the air itself was warning me of something. We were on the verge of a confrontation, but was it one we could control? The moment hung heavy as the first shout carried through the air, ringing with a promise of revolution and fear alike, and I knew then, more than ever, that our story was about to shift into an uncharted territory. It felt thrilling, yet terrifying. A question loomed overhead. Could we truly turn the tide, or were we stepping into a tempest we couldn't escape? The cacophony of voices outside blended into a steady thrum inside my head, the words unfair and collusion echoing like a relentless drum. My heart hammered against my ribcage as I stood on the threshold, a spectator to a movement swelling around us like a tide desperate to reclaim its shore. I felt my mother and Clara close behind me, an unspoken understanding engulfing us all. The moment for action had arrived, but the cost remained a haunting specter looming over our heads. Mom, what do we do? Daniel's voice trembled with youthful urgency, grasping at the air for direction amid the swirl of chaos echoing from the street. Gather everyone inside, my mother shouted over the din, her voice carrying an authority that mingled effortlessly with her maternal instinct. We need to strategize before reacting recklessly. As the crowd continued shouting, I could sense the shifting energy, the tension palpable, a buzzing weight pressing down on us, demanding we harness it. What if we hold a meeting? Clara suggested, her eyes sparkling with fervor. If we can create a commune with the employees, find out who shares our concerns, who's willing to stand with us, then we can counter their fear. No more waiting, I said, the determination bubbling to the surface. We need to act now, before fear collapses everything into silence. If we can amplify our voices together, we can create change. The plan swirled in the air, igniting something deep within Maya, fierce passion tempered with trepidation. As my mother rapidly gathered phone numbers and organized our small cavalry, I could feel my heart racing in rhythm with newfound conviction. It wasn't just her career on the line anymore. It was about community, shared struggles, and lives intertwined, just waiting for someone to pull them from the shadows. "Let's move," my mother declared, her eyes blazing with a strength I hadn't seen in a long time. "We rally the employees, spread the word through social media, and we don't stop until the truth is out there. Our families and friends deserve to know what's happening." As we burst out of the door, the erratic crowd seemed to swell, lifeblood fueling a fire that united us all. Conversations erupted amidst the cries for justice, each voice pitching in, blending into a thunderous roar that resonated down the street. The din of our rallying cries seemed to awaken something in the hearts of those nearby, realization that this was no random moment, no mere disruption of their routine, but the culmination of years of struggle now surging forth in a united front. The energy electrified the very air we breathed. I could see Mr. Anderson standing behind us, arms crossed, silently urging us onward. A silent vow of support emanated from his presence. We were not alone. We had allies underestimating the depth of our shared grievances. "Look," Clara called out, pointing toward a group of employees gathering by a street corner, curious eyes now fixed on us. "If we can rally them, others will follow. They can't keep our thoughts silent." The sun broke through the once overcast horizon, casting warmth that wrapped around our shoulders, emboldening my resolve. Feeling emboldened, I stepped forward, my voice raising to a fever pitch. "We're here together. Our voices matter. Our stories matter. Let's stand united against these cuts that threaten our livelihoods. The power belongs to us." The reverberation of my words sparked something like laughter mixed with tears. People began to chant back, "Power to the people." It was a plea, echoing with both fear and hope, unashamedly intertwined, a sound that stirred something primal within each of you. As the crowd around me began to swell in solidarity, I noticed in the faces of my neighbors, friends, and colleagues a relentless spirit ignited, woven into the very fabric of our reality. They were shedding the ghosts of resignation, the kind that had ensnared them for so long, and converging on hope that perhaps, maybe, we could change the course of our fate. "Let's go to the office," someone hollered, and an overwhelming cheer erupted, enough to quench the storm brewing in my gut. Driven by momentum that would become its own force, we began to move, and I felt light, as if my feet were barely touching the ground. This was more than a simple protest. It was a way of taking back what was rightfully ours, the beginning of something together that we had long sought after individually. Through the myriad of voices, I could hardly hear a thunderous rallying cry morphing outside me, shaking the foundations of our collective uncertainty. Still, I sensed Mr. Anderson beside Maya's hesitance begun to peel back, the resolve in his posture echoing the flames of passion igniting throughout the crowd around us. As we marched, I reveled in the strength of what we had conjured, embracing the power of connection and community as we moved toward not just survival but thriving. I turned to look back at my mother, her face etched with determination, her spirit flaring brighter with every step. Even Daniel lagged slightly, a little unsure yet radiating an eagerness only a child could possess. But just as the fervor peaked, another barrier emerged, a wall of stern-looking security guards, arms crossed and faces unyielding, blocking our path to the building. The noise became thunderous, tension thick, each heart raced as uncertainty hung in the air. This was it. We either turned back or we pressed harder against the tides of oppression, the very beliefs buoying us onward, crashing against that formidable barrier. But I could see the flickering flame in my mother's eyes, vaulting over the doubt that swelled within. It dawned on me then, we didn't have to convince them to let us pass. We needed only to show them we were here, that our hope would not be extinguished, and that we were ready to stand for change. My pulse quickened. I felt the weight of history against my shoulders as I lunged forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with my fellow champions of resilience. As I raised my voice to speak, I could feel the energy galvanize, pulling me into a moment that would define us. We stand for justice. For our families. We will not dissolve under pressure or allow another person to be cut from the fabric of this community. My words spilled forth, echoing against the steel and glass wall, resonating within hearts beating for something greater than themselves. Just as the first guard stepped forward, armed with orders, something remarkable happened. A voice emerged from the throngs of people behind me. A woman who had been standing in solidarity. "We are not here for conflict. We are here for our voice. We are more than numbers. We are people, full of dreams and lives that matter." One by one, voices surged forward shouting out the depths of their own stories, their struggles woven together as they clamored not just against erasure but for unity. And just like that, our collective voices nearly broke through. It was powerful enough to make even the wall of stoicism falter as the guard glanced back nervously. Another joined her. And then longing, something transformative, something undeniable surged through the crowd. Tears mixed with smirks. Resilience churned with anger. The wall began to shift. After what felt like an eternity, the guard finally stepped aside, if only momentarily, as if struck by the fury of love and tenacity that surged forth. One more step. It beckoned like a banner flying proudly with each heartbeat, uniting us against injustice. As we surged forward, my heart pounded wildly within my chest. The world felt electric with change. And there we crossed the threshold, hand in hand and heart linked with one shared purpose. We would champion for all those who stood alongside us, weaving dreams into a tapestry bold and unyielding. As we stormed into the office, doors flung wide open with a courage that threatened to drown every doubt, I knew without question that we had ignited something beyond just a fight for survival, something akin to freedom. This was more than just about jobs or promotions. It was about dignity, humanity, and our ability to tread boldly into a future that could either crush or elevate our lives. And at long last, we were standing together. I end this moment. All of us fighting against the heavy winds trying to pull us back felt like the most fiercely alive chorus echoing in a world built to silence us. Amid the myriad of faces before me, encased in passion and vulnerability, the truth burned brightly, a flame kindled by community and compassion. And as I took my mother's hand, raising it high alongside the others, I whispered, "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. United." The chorus bellowed back, echoing louder with each beat, resonating like a heartbeat intertwined together. What existed between us tore through darkness and uncertainty, leaving a shimmering light bright enough to battle the heaviest shadows that sought to reclaim power. And as we tread forward, those words became our rallying cry, uniting us against the winds of change that raged outside. I stepped forward with renewed conviction, feeling the weight of responsibility lift, transformed into hope. Together, I breathed, allowing the sweetness of hope to wash over me, finally believing we could change everything, with one last breath. As my heart surged against the tide, I shouted into the fray, "Together, we will rise." And just as the cheers erupted around me, the ground beneath our feet solidified, granting me the firmest sense of belonging, a feeling I knew, deep down, would only grow with every step we took toward the uncertain future ahead.